Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest video from Roofing Contractor magazine. My name is Chris. I am the managing editor at Roofing Contractor, and joining me today for our Q&A is Brian Kruse of Legacy Roofing Services. Brian, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Now, before we jump into anything pandemic related, which I'm sure everyone is loving to hear about these days, could you just tell me a little bit about who you are and about Legacy's scope of work?
Yeah, sure. So we are an Ohio-based company. We currently are in 3 markets: Northeast Ohio, Columbus, and a small presence in Central Florida. We are roughly 80% flat commercial work, 20% shingle, and that shingle work is split between commercial shingle and truly residential. We really focus on quality and safety and customer service. Most of our business is replacement work. We do a small amount of new construction. We have about 150, 160 employees across those 3 markets. And, we are a relatively young company, been in business for about 8 years.
Now, with the pandemic in place, there, and your multiple different positions and different locations, how has it been dealing with the pandemic in that regard?
Yeah, well, it's definitely been a challenge. Being an Ohio-based company, Ohio has been, I think, ahead of most other states, particularly Florida, from our standpoint, with regards to putting in restrictions and putting in guidelines. And so really by just keeping up with what Ohio has asked for and going a little beyond what they've asked for, we've got a program that applies to the whole business. But it's definitely required us to change how we operate a bit. Like we were discussing before we got on, we've had our offices shut down for a couple of months, open only to essential personnel. We opened the map back up with a rotation program at the beginning of June, so we had about half the staff in on any given day. We ended that last week, and we now have people in. If they would like to come in, people still have the option to work from home if they're able to. Our field crews have been working. We've been in essential business in both states, so that's been very helpful. But that's definitely come with challenges too. I mean, we've had to implement pretty strict sanitation protocols. We have both hand washing protocols and equipment cleaning protocols. Our service vans, they have 2 guys in them all day. They have to wear masks at all times. We wear masks when we're on the ground. We don't wear them on roofs because we've tried that for about a week and found that the fogging issue with safety glasses was more of a hazard than the mask. So we just enforce social distance policies on the roof, and then when people are on the ground, they put masks on. So we definitely had to adapt quite a bit. But I'm just grateful that we were classified as essential and we've been able to operate the whole time.
Yeah, I know there's definitely companies that weren't able to operate and have really had some troubles enduring and getting back into it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Along those lines, what would you say is just the current status of Legacy? Did you lose some business? Were you pretty steady, or how was that for you guys?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we actually were off to a record year. Q1 was phenomenal for us. April was actually still pretty strong. I mean, we've definitely seen a slowdown in some of our markets, not all of them, thankfully. I wouldn't say we've lost business. We've definitely had some stuff delayed, though, which we've managed to work around. But I think that's definitely not unique to us. I would imagine most construction type businesses have seen issues similar to that. But on the whole, I think we're really well positioned. I mean, it's basically just keep doing what we're doing to get through the time being and have a position for us to be really strong coming out of this.
Excellent. Well, that's really good to hear. I know there's been a lot of businesses, especially roofing, that have struggled through this. So definitely hear that you guys are still doing well. You mentioned having it sounds like a pretty stellar year so far, all things considered. Could you maybe tell me about how Legacy's culture has played a role in that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, we have a pretty tight-knit collaborative culture here, which can be challenging with multiple offices around the country. But it starts from really a shared set of values. I mean, like I mentioned before, we're big on quality and customer service and safety, and everyone at the company's bought into those things. And that has allowed us to continue living up to those expectations, even when we don't see each other face to face. So I would say that, like doing meetings like this over Zoom virtually has definitely been a challenge. We've done a good job of staying in contact with each other and making sure that everybody is holding each other accountable for living up to those expectations.
Now, as part of the business operation side of it,
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is something that is being introduced this year. It is the fall prevention and safety services.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you could just tell us a little bit about that, how it came to be, and
Sure. So I feel that we have one of the best safety programs in the industry, and we've been asked over the past few years by a number of customers to use those expertise to help them increase fall prevention safety on their roofs. And so it is something we've actually done already, and we started getting enough requests that it made sense to turn it into a formalized service offering and put a little bit of effort behind marketing it. So that's really kind of the genesis of that.
great. Yeah, no, with the service in particular, is this something that was being developed for a while now, or was this something that kind of came about because of COVID? Or can you tell me just maybe a little bit of the history behind it?
Yeah, it doesn't really have anything to do with COVID. I mean, it really came from a number of customers that wanted to upgrade the safety environments of their roofs. It's not just our industry that's impacted by that. It's HVAC contractors, it's window washers, it's basically anybody that needs to get up there. And so they had asked us to install railings, they had asked us to install protection around skylights, they had asked us to install things around ladders and tie-off points, and we were starting to do enough of this that we knew that there was a market for it, and we have the record and the credentials to offer it to customers that aren't necessarily just asking for it themselves. So we started doing that actively in the last month.
What would you say is the response so far?
I mean, it's been positive. It's still in the early phases, and we do have customers that are basically not allowing vendors on their roofs. Like we do have a decent amount of healthcare, and they're just starting to open up those facilities to outside vendors. And I'm not doing this now expecting to see a big uptick immediately. This is more of a medium, long-term play, but it's off to a good start.
Good, very good. Now, obviously, safety is a big issue in the industry as a whole, as I'm sure you're well aware of. Do you see this being something that other contractors, even the industry itself, will be pursuing in the future?
Potentially, yeah. I think it's something not everyone is going to be able to do, as I think it does require certain expertise, certain credentials and credibility. It also requires, depending on the scope and size of the project you're working on, it might require a service and maintenance capability, which not all contractors have. But for those that do have those things, I think it could be a great thing to get into. Because of increasing regulations and increasing requirements from OSHA, these are things that customers are going to be needing in increasing numbers. And I think we as an industry are well positioned to answer that need.
Excellent. You brought up OSHA. Did your company work closely with them at all on this, or was it sort of independent? What was the?
No, pretty independent. I mean, we have a great relationship with the Ohio Bureau of Workers' Compensation. For those who don't know, Ohio is a monopoly state for workers' comp, and we have a really good relationship with them as a company. And so they are able to provide some guidance when we have safety issues, and we actually provide that guidance occasionally on certain things. So that's more of a partnership. With OSHA. It hasn't been very active.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, if somebody, a contractor perhaps, wanted to initiate their own safety program as you've done here, what sort of advice would you give them if they're trying to roll it out or look into it?
That's a really good question. I think I would look into what your own capabilities are in terms of your own safety program and your expertise. I would look at what your customer base is and who is likely to buy this from you that you're already working with, because that's going to kind of dictate the size of the projects. And if it's larger scale, then you can probably use production crews on it. If it's smaller scale, then it's probably not a good use of that resource. Yeah, I think that would start with that. And then, you also need vendor relationships because this stuff is a little more specialized than buying rolls of TPO and things like that.
Were there any sort of extra like equipment purchases or anything like that you had to make because of this, or is this all pretty much?
No, I mean, for us, it's stuff we already had. But like I said, we've been doing this type of work on a smaller scale for a few years now.
So it's more just a formation of the actual service and putting it together as opposed to a huge.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's something we'd already been doing. We just wanted to formalize it a little bit.
Are there any sort of challenges that you're seeing coming out of this pandemic as people start to open? What's sort of the future looking like at this moment for Legacy in that regard?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it really depends on the market and what the makeup of that market is and what your particular business is relative to that market. So, for example, we do a lot of work with healthcare facilities. We do a lot of work with retail facilities, and those are locations for different reasons have had some struggles recently. So, as Ohio opened up, with the exception of doing or allowing large gatherings, Ohio is effectively fully open now. And so we're seeing more retail activity. Hospital systems are starting to loosen the restrictions on allowing vendors on the property. So that's definitely helped the business there. But for example, in the Columbus market, we haven't had any slowdown whatsoever. So it really kind of varies geography to geography and based on what your specific customer mix is in that geography. But I think as we come out of this, as more retail centers open up, as more people return to their offices and discover their leaks, their issues that we're addressing, I think we in the industry as a whole are well positioned for a nice recovery. I mean, the wonderful thing about what we do, particularly on the replacement side, is it's not something you can choose not to do. It isn't optional, like replacing and maintaining the roof. If you care at all about water entry into your space, it's just something you have to do. So it's more of a matter of when that work happens, more so than if.
All right, yeah, very good points. Everyone needs a roof. Doesn't matter if you're a school, hospital,
absolutely, yeah,
wherever it is, you need a roof. So it's
absolutely.
All right, great. Well, yeah, thank you for taking the time to speak with me, and thank you to everyone out there watching. And if you think about it and have done so already, please subscribe to all of our digital content for the latest news.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.